G'day and welcome to another big edition of the RDFNL Footy Show. Looking back on round one, part one, my name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray from the Star Weekly. First weekend is in the bag. How did you see it?
Well, we started the season off with a thriller. If that's the sign of things to come, we will have a very good RDFL season.
Simply fantastic. We're good to see Saturday night football in action as well. A good game there between Sunbury Kangaroos and Rupert's Wood before things headed off to Lansfield on Sunday, where the Hawks easily won that one. But let's turn our attention to Saturday. It was for the Pucker Up Cup, and what a big day it was with Wayne Swass and I think Justin Kazitsi, Scotty Cummings, and a few other big names there to promote the Pucker Up group.
It was, and I think it's the start of something big. They want to turn this into something that every time these two teams meet, that they raise awareness for the Pucker Up Cup and mental health and men's health as well. So I think it was a really, really good day, and both clubs got behind it, all the supporters got behind it, and I think a sign of things to come between these two clubs.
Yep, exactly. Some exciting things and a lot of awareness. And and I know a lot of people sort of asked the question. I've got one of the wristbands here, but some people did say, what does it mean with the hashtag stigma stops with me? And it actually started a number of conversations on the day about men's health. So that hashtag was planted across a lot of shirts on the day, and I think it was good to start that conversation on a big day and perfect weather as well.
It was. It didn't seem like footy season. It still seemed like cricket season. It was that warm, but no, good day to start the season.
Yeah. Now we did get the thriller with Macedon and Riddle, and I think we probably expected this one to go down the wire. Some people had actually tipped that it could go down the last kick or something to that effect, and it was a hotly contested game. The Bombers came and they led by 15 points at three-quarter time before the Cats, through Matty Knox, opened up the last term, and he kicked a few goals and set the game up.
It was. I think we both said going into this match it could go either way, and both teams had bits of control. At half-time, the Cats were up, and then Riddle dominated that third term and could have been a lot further ahead, and Ben Tankard, the Macedon coach, acknowledged that after the game, that they could have been further behind. But as you said, they quickly evaporated the lead early in the last quarter. Matty Knox providing a target up forward. James Wright took a couple of marks as well. So their experienced guys stood up there, and then Riddle came back again. So we're like, and there was another twist in the tail, and the last few minutes was in the Bombers' forward half, but they couldn't find that goal to get in front, and in the end the Cats held on. That
was probably a bit of a challenge for the Bombers on the day, because they kicked, was 11 goals, 12, but 5 goals come from their skipper Hayden Ross, who is a conventional midfielder, and they'd sort of probably lacked that option up forward. Nolan, he probably wasn't as threatening on the day. They probably just lacked that little bit of spark, and maybe in the dying minutes, that's probably what sort of hurt them in the end.
Look, and I think a little bit ill-discipline as well. It wasn't the most disciplined last quarter from both sides, but there was times there was a 50-metre penalty and a down-the-ground free kick that resulted in Macedon going forward and getting a scoring opportunity earlier in that last quarter. So, look, there was good signs from both clubs, and obviously you mentioned Hayden Ross kicking goals for the Bombers. Even last year, they didn't have your traditional forward. They relied on a lot of his guys going forward. So it'll be interesting with that's still a sign of things to come.
Thoughts on Dylan Tarkson and his first hit out in Bomber colours?
He showed some glimpses. You looked at him and you go, who's that player? He looked a skill above, but it's about doing that consistently over the whole entire game.
Yeah, and just sort of building a little bit more fitness as well. And it was a hot day as well, no doubt. There would have been a lot of weary legs on the day. And I guess the other question is, have the Cats lost any of their touch from their premiership win?
I don't think so. Early on, it's a good sign going forward. They've still got a lot of improvement, but it's round one, and you've got you experienced guys stood up like they normally do. Matty Dick got the best on ground medal, which was no surprise. He absolutely dominated there. You have Matty Knox step up when you needed him to. James Wright, Tommy Waters, even Seb Melitek down back, who was one of the younger guys who really stood up for them.
Seb's going to be one that I'll be a big advocate for this year, because Tegan Henderson, outstanding centre half back in the premiership last year, he's retired. Seb's just slotted into that role. He took 3 contested marks early on in the first half, and really set the trend too for the back line to sort of get that little bit of dominance.
Yeah, and obviously he was one of the a couple of young guns across the game that stood out. I think Michael Salberg was another one, and I know Jamie Elliott had high raps on his pre-season, and he really showed in that first game that he has taken that next step.
Football returned to the Boardman Reserve for Saturday night football, and I guess for those who might have seen the score at quarter time, they would have raised the eyebrow. The Kangaroos were up 4-1, and they were 3 goals up, and looked like maybe the upset was on the cards, and but order was somewhat restored, and Rupert's Wood come back. They played a really good second term. I think the Burjo kicked a goal on the halftime siren, brought the margin back to 4 points, but the Kangaroos only kicked 1 goal after halftime.
Well, yeah, as you said, I actually looked at the scores at quarter time and said, what the heck's going on here? So I thought Rupert's would be well ahead, and as you mentioned, after half-time, Rupo just proved too strong. I think it was 9-1 in that second half. So that was the difference between the two sides. Sunbury Kangaroos, it's probably a first look at their new look side. How are they going to go in a given measure against them? For Rupert's Wood, it's about getting those new guys into the side and seeing how they can gel, because obviously they've got high expectations this year and it's starting the season well for them.
I think there was a lot of positives to take out of Sunbury Kangaroos, particularly watching that first term. They were first to the ball, and Johnny Corso, he was really, really good in the midfield. Burjo provided a really good forward target. Dwayne Tate started pretty strong, kicking an early goal, and but that's what happens. The Kangaroos are going to be relying on that confidence within that team to sort of carry them forward, and I think if they can take that pressure going forward in most of the games coming forward, I think they'll surprise a few this year.
They will, and definitely if they play like they did in the first quarter, then they're not going to be pushovers. They'll still be around the mark for a final spot if they play like that. Sunday
football returned to Lancefield, and it was a great performance by the Hawks, particularly in the final term. They kicked 9 last quarter goals to come away with a big win over Lancefield by 101 points. I don't know that we should be too surprised about that result.
It was the result Woodend needed to have. If
Yep.
they want to play finals, they need to beat these low sides and beat them by a lot. So generally in the past, they probably haven't had these big wins against your lower sides. So that's making a statement earlier on going, we're not just going to beat these sides by 30 to 40 points. We're going to put a big margin on them. They had 12 different goal kickers, and the 2 Toman boys in the midfield dominated and were the 2 best players on the ground. So good signs for the Hawks early.
What about for Lancefield?
Lancefield, you don't score in the first quarter of round 1, it can only get better than that, you would say. So obviously they've got a new side, they've got a whole lot of new players. They are going to be a side that struggles this year. We've both said we don't think they'll be anywhere near finals, but it's about getting a team on the park and developing those players that they do have.
I think it's probably about the same level as Sunbury Kangaroos. Lancefield and Sunbury Kangaroos lost a hell of a lot of players over the off-season. So you look at that round 1 and you just build up from there. So hopefully we get a few more answers and questions as the year progresses, and they'll take a lot of positives out of that. No doubt, as you say, you can only improve after that first quarter, and they'll be just looking to see what they can do. They haven't had the ideal pre-season, so they can only build forward from here.
Yep, obviously Sunbury Kangaroos are probably a step ahead of Lancefield because they've had reserves premierships, so they've got players coming through that have had success, but I get the point that it's a starting point, and to build from there.
Exactly. And of course we'll cap off this edition with sad news over the weekend, the passing of Sean Kelly, very well known and very well loved across the AFL Goldfields region. Unfortunately, he passed during the frenetic game between Macedon and Riddle. And as good as I don't know what it was like for you, but you had the high of that 1 point result, and then sort of to get the news afterwards was sort of a bit of a souring point on the day. But I think he's touched so many lives, and I think that the wider community is definitely hit by this one.
It was, and obviously, I found out after siren, it puts a little bit of damper and puts it in perspective. And obviously, you said Sean had a big impact on the community, not just the football, but also the netball. He paid a lot of attention to the netball, and I think it's hit hard across the community. I know there's been a lot of talk in Ballarat, but also the RDFL community. He was down here for those 3 years and really had a big impact.
Yeah, and it's even speaking to some of the people over in Maryborough during this particular week, they still talked about just coming out on the microphone and announcing the premiers, particularly with Carisbrook. Caught up with Luke Treacy during the week, and he just thought that was great for the club, and that his presence on the day just sort of elevated that the club's search for that elusive premiership, and no doubt he'll be missed over in that region too.
Yep.
So on that note, we've certainly got a big weekend of football and netball coming up. Stick around later on in the week where we've got some more exciting shows. Tara, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It was finally so by Rockbank to get their first win on the board. Leroy Spall leading from by Rockbank to get their first win on the board. Leroy Spall leading